It's just a matter of hard work, and the more you put in, the more you'll get out of the game.
Well, good morning and welcome to Seven's special coverage of Russell Ebert's state funeral, of course, being held at Alberton Oval. Soda, what a momentous occasion.
Well, we know that Russell, an absolute giant of the game, but a wonderful man off the field, of course, for the community. We'll head to Alberton Oval shortly, and amongst Russell's family and friends, as you can see here, there will be thousands and thousands of Port Adelaide faithful there celebrating the life of, well, what's certainly one of the greatest sportsmen that South Australia's ever produced. Yeah,
and plenty of dignitaries who've already showed up. Marjorie Jackson Nelson, former governor, as well as Hugh Van Lay. But a fitting farewell for a great man of the game, as you say. Like, we know a former Gary medalist, 3 premierships under his belt, but it was off the field, such a humble, such a giving man, and he was raised to be that way and gracious till the very end, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. A Riverland boy, and spent a lot of time helping others, Novita Charity, alongside a good mate of his in Barry Robin as well. So we're going to cross shortly in just a moment to Bruce Abernathy, who of course is a premiership teammate, and John Riddell, who's a good mate of Russell's as well. But also too, there will be some premiership teammates of Russell's paying tribute throughout the service that we'll see.
Yeah, and we'll also be hearing from members of his family, his children as well. Shall we go to Alberton Oval, where former teammate Bruce Abernathy is standing by, as well as a good friend of Russell's, John Riddell.
Thanks, Rosie. And so does, yes, Alberton Oval, and thousands are here to, we know it's a tragedy, but to celebrate the great man's life. Much has been made, Jack, of on the field. We all know the numbers, we all know the stats, but you got to know him off the field, and that's what people don't really know. It's a great story, isn't it?
Oh, he's a super bloke. And, I was at a charity golf day 25 years ago, and I said to Russ, what's all this about? And it was for crippled children's, which is now Novita. And I said, can I give you a hand with the next one? And he said, yeah, come out to the crippled kids on Monday night after work. So I went out there, thought I'd just get a job, and I walked in the door, and there's a conference room there and about 10, 12 people. Barry Robin was there, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome our new committee member, John Riddell. I'm in.
So how many years is that now?
It's 25, and 15 of those we've just finished our last river run without Russell for the first time. Just last Friday we finished, and we raised $719,000, and I reckon they did it for Russell.
Can you believe that, what we all know him as the star on the field, but what he was like off the field, how he just kept giving to the community, and he didn't want any recognition for it, but he's almost the first star athlete who used that ability and that profile to help people less fortunate.
Well, when Peter Marker, Barry Robin and Russ finished playing footy, they went to crippled children and said, what can we do? And the first thing they bought was a bus with a lift on the back for the wheelchairs, and they said, this is easy. So they kept going and going, and now, Russ was with us right up to the last minute on the river runs. 14 he did. And over the years, we've raised millions of dollars. And so every year I was in a boat with Russ. Russ liked to drive.
Yes.
My turn to drive. No, you drove yesterday. No, you did. No, you did. No. But always, at the end of the day, where we shared a room, he'd say to me, you get the good bed. And I took it.
Of course you did. I know you very well, don't worry. Of course, Russell Ebert, a great footballer as well, and I had the privilege of playing with him. And he was one of those guys that as long as you gave 100%, none of us were as good as him. And he realised that. But as long as you gave 100%, he had your back. And he was just a wonderful person to play football with. And Jack, a wonderful bloke to do things off the field with as well. So we're just
a beautiful man.
We're here to celebrate. It was a tragic news when we heard he had the disease, the cancer. But we're here to celebrate at Alberton, and no more fitting place for him.
Absolutely, yeah. This is his home ground, and how good was he on this field? Dominated.
Absolutely fantastic.
Dominated. Great man.
The state funeral has just started, so we're going to pick it up now. Chris Dittmar is the MC. We're going to hear from a lot of former players, but it is all set to go here in front of thousands of people, thousands of the faithful. So let's celebrate the great life of Russell Ebert.
Today, we are here to acknowledge and honour the exceptional, incredible life of Russell Ebert. And this includes his illustrious football career, and much of which, of course, was spent here at the Port Adelaide Football Club. And his achievements here mean that many consider him to be the club's greatest player of all time. Just recently, he was elevated to legend status in the South Australian Sport Hall of Fame. Russell was a true gentleman who will be remembered for his tremendous service and contribution on and off the field of football and to the broader community in South Australia and Australia. This is going to be a special welcome to country. They're all special, but this one in particular because this gentleman is a senior Ghana man and he played alongside Russell and he was coached by Russell, Mickey O'Brien.
Nina mani. Na Ghana biako mankalankala marawachanga Ghana mina. Minyana na mani puriji na nari kamat pre marriage. Na wangadi mani budni Ghana yatana, inti yata, yata balti, bandu, wadley, mikawama, wana, Russell Polti. Welcome to the lands of the Ghana people. It is my pleasure, not only as an ambassador and descendant of the Ghana people, to welcome you to this place, a special place, being not only the place of football, but also the celebration of a great man. He was my teammate, he was my coach, and he was also a friend, but he was also family. Today we call upon the spirit people of our ancestors to bring us good blessings, to send away that sad, and importantly, to send the spirit of this great man to the place that we call Garda, being Kangaroo Island, the lap, because we believe that our physical is only temporary, but our spiritual is forever. And we believe that we return back to the land and everything, whether it be the land, the skies, the waters, the plants or the animals, but it also is in our hearts and in our spirit. So it is a pleasure because you are the important people when you come to a place. Our people have always welcomed people. We do that because it's an opportunity to have relations, to have connections. I'm sure if Russell played our game, being the possum skin football, he would be just as great as he was at Aussie rules. So I say to you all, Nachi Yukandaya, Nachi Yakandaya, Padnia do wadu. I say, Naradadlu, Kamaka, Yara Kumanindi, which is saying not only are we all brothers and sisters and we walk together in harmony, we never say goodbye, we always say see you later, but more importantly, this man was a person who gave, and when we received, we certainly became one. Nakara Nechaya. Thank you.
Thank you to Mickey O'Brien for the welcome to country, and Mickey, I know you have a special bond with Russell. Looking forward to hearing stories from Russell's family and friends, and first up this morning, the eldest of his brothers. I'd like to welcome to the microphone Bill Ebert.
I'll have to take this off so I can hear myself. I'd like to repeat Chris's mentioned this just a while ago. We're celebrating the life of Russ, which was a hell of a life. Starting at the top, Russell Frank Ebert, OAM 1949 to 2021. Born in Berry in the Riverland, June the 22nd, 1949. Russell was the fourth that come along in a line of 6 siblings, and moved to, we first of all lived in Monash when Russ was born. A couple of years after, beginning of the 50s, Dad acquired a farm at Alawoona. Back in the, semi-depression days, when the Alawoona people heard that the Ebert family were coming to Alawoona, in a little country town, it revolves around sport. And Dad had played for Berry for a couple of years in the A grade, Riverland, and that was a very warm welcome to the family, knowing that we were going to Alawoona with a family of boys mainly and a sister, Lynette. And they soon got onto him. 1952, Dad was coaching of Alawoona and went to their first premiership ever. And we were welcomed by all the neighbours, the Vineys, Thomases, Gladigos. And at Alawoona, winter football and netball, summer cricket and tennis, and the main interests were rabbit trapping, because there was a semi-rabbit plague, bird nesting and spotlighting. Spotlighting part was the entertainment for the family. Possibly a couple of times a week, we would get the old buckboard out of the shed. Dad would drive, Mum on the back of the spotlight. I had the gun. Lynette was sitting inside with Dad, and here was Jerry and Russ on the running boards. They were our greyhound dogs. As I'd shoot over the top of these rabbits, they'd stop in the light, and then the boys would off. Sometimes picking up 2 rabbits at a time, running flat out. And I'm sure this is where Russ obtained and Jerry obtained their skills of picking a rabbit up, running flat out, and just grabbing it by the back and running off with it. Run back to the buckboard, chucked it on the back, and some nights we'd gather anything up to 100 pair of rabbits, which helped feed the family meat-wise, plus a lot of money on the table to help the rest of the family out, sort of thing. That was the early 50s. As we all grow up, we had to move to Loxton, about 4 kilometres out of Loxton on the River Murray. You can imagine what a transition it was to coming from the mallee, drift sand, mallee trees and flies. We arrived at the riverbank, about 500 metres away from the River Murray, and the first interest was swimming and skiing. We did that for 12 months of the year, because in the winter time we'd don woolen jackets, woolen coats, woolen jumpers, and you could ski all year round, and that was our highlight. Sometimes in the essence of the swimming, skiing, there was very antics being had. And Russ, the whole family, become very, very good swimmers. And Russ you saw a photo just a while ago of Russ with Jeff on his shoulders and Craig on his shoulders. And that's how they used to perform on the water, with skis. And one incident didn't go over well with Mum, because Craig come along and he was the baby of the family and a permanent toy for all of us kids to play with. We didn't need our teddy bears. All we had was Craig. One day the family were missing down on the riverbank. Mum come down to see what was going on, what had happened. Being good swimmers, Jerry, Russ and Jeff, with Craig on Russ's back because he was the strongest swimmer, they were over the other side of the river, laughing their heads off and waving their hands. Mum was furious to see her 18-month-old baby on the other side of the river, which was about 200 metres wide, and hence picked up a stick and threatened the boys to swim very, very carefully back over the river, which they all did, and never ever did that sort of antics again. Switching back onto the farm for a while, we had an incident in the horse and cart. were out round the rabbit traps, went over a sand hill, Russ fell off the cart. Over the steel-wheeled cart, ran over him. So we all swore to one another that no one would tell Mum and Dad about it. So we went home, bugging me dead if that night everyone jumped through the bath. Mum come in while Russ was in the bath, and what's that red mark straight over your chest? It was only the wheel of the rabbit cart. We disappeared for quite a while, and then came back when Mum had cooled down a little bit. Russ, footy at Loxton. We all played our football in the midst of the 50s and 60s. Brother Jeff was in the junior Colts. Russ was in the senior Colts. And Jerry and I lined up in the A grade. So we had a formidable side in that particular. And Loxton, we've always had a representative in Loxton for a lot of years. The coaches of Russ and the younger ones were Gordon Fenwick, Kevin Zerner and Robert Filkey. At the age of 17, Russ left school. Went and got a job in the bank, the Savings Bank of Loxton, and that was about 1967. And then in the end of the year, summer months, he got a transfer to Wakery's bank. So we went down to Wakery, played footy for Wakery that year, and also met the love of his life, Di. She was a beautiful little nurse down there at the Wakery Hospital. And Russ, of course, had his football. And in that same 12 months, Russ got recruited to Port Adelaide. And they just had an extremely good union down there because they both moved to Adelaide together. In the year he was playing for Wakery, he won the Peter Frankham first year A-grade player. And there was a bit of an incident during that first year where Loxton played Wakery. And of course I always played centre-half back, and of course Russ played centre-half forward. Half-time come along and Russ come limping towards me. I said, "What is the matter, mate?" He said, "These shoes Mum and Dad gave me, these new shoes for making A-grade, they're rubbing me and I'm getting blisters." I said, "Listen, chuck them off. I'll swap with you." So I wore his brand new boots. He took mine over. And you can imagine what happened in the last quarter, or last half. He, no blisters. I don't know if it was my boots or his ability, but I'm sure it was the latter. But he turned the game around in that particular game and never sort of looked back. One of the main emphasis of Dad's advice at one stage, he said about making sure we all abided by it. One was do at least one good deed for someone every day, speak when spoken to, you learn a lot more from listening than you do from talking, never take any in life for granted, and always visit the elderly, the disadvantaged, as often as possible. And I think I'm trying to live it all my life, and I'm sure the rest of the family have too. Rest in peace, brother. I'll miss the Thursday night phone calls. About 5:45 every Thursday, he'd ring me up, see how I was going. Watch the footy. You'll forever be in our hearts, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. That was magnificent. Thank you to Jeff for coming up as well. Russell's career was even more special. We were lucky to get him out of Allawoona, I think. He survived. It's unbelievable. If ever you wanted to see Russell beaming with pride, and happy. You only had to ask him about his kids. He was the proudest man, proudest father in Australia. And I think Di will attest to this. If you asked him about the grandkids, you had to set aside about an hour and a half, because he told you about every single thing they were doing and every day and what they were involved in. He was the proudest father and grandfather. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the microphone his 3 children, Tammy, Benjamin and Brett.
On behalf of Mum, Ben, Brett and our families, we sincerely thank you for being here today, and all of our friends and family who are watching from afar. Thank you to Premier Stephen Marshall and the State Government, and Matthew Richardson and the Port Adelaide Footy Club for allowing us to share this time with those who Dad touched the most, at a place where he created everlasting memories. Russell, Russ, Herb, Ebo, God. But to us, we had the privilege of calling him our dad. Growing up in the Ebert household was surrounded by love, sport and Port Adelaide. It was an idyllic childhood. Dad was playing football when we were all young, and being kids, we were way more interested in going to the creche and playing with our mates and sitting and watching him run around the footy field. We heard he was pretty good, but none of us truly realised how good he was until we got older. We would often walk around the football with Dad, and kids who had never seen him play before would say, "That's Russell Ebert." The stories of his playing ability had been passed down generations, from grandparents to parents to their children. Even over the past week, where we have seen so much footage that us kids had never seen before, we've had a chance to reflect on just how good he was. To us, though, he was Dad, not Russell Ebert. His legacy is a testament to his ability to forge a reputation which extended far beyond the football field and into people's lives. Dad worked hard. Between football, running his own businesses and all of his charity work, we saw the preparation that he put into everything he did. Mum would cook a steak on Friday night, and his pre-game meal was jam and cream on fresh white bread. I don't think pasta was a buzz pre-game meal back then, because every time Mum made spag bog, Dad would say, "Don't I give you enough money for groceries?" Or we knew he had a meeting or training, so he definitely wasn't home for dinner. We would often spend time on the river, either at Harry's shack at Murray Bridge, Harney's at Morgan, or on Uncle Bill's houseboat at Loxton. Dad taught us all to ski and spent numerous hours driving laps in his little Speedo bathers, getting frazzled in the sun, but would always go again when we said, "Just one more, Dad," but as long as we held on, otherwise he'd get pretty frustrated. He always seemed to catch the biggest fish, although he often didn't reel it in. He just seemed to pop up in the photo, holding the prize catch, close to the camera too, making it look 10 pounds bigger than it actually was.
Dad always made an effort to come to watch us play our sport, in between his many commitments. He always provided constructive feedback on our performances. At times, we didn't want it, but we knew he was always right. When we asked Dad how training was, he would always say, "Electric." Dad was always there to help, provide advice, a shoulder to cry on, someone to get footy tickets off or some discount from the shops, someone to lend a chainsaw to and then have him end up cutting down the tree himself. He always helped those who are less fortunate, made people feel comfortable, always listened with empathy. He knew someone in every bakery in South Australia and the best ones to go to. When people introduced themselves, and there were thousands, they would say, "Remember me." And he did. His ability to remember something about everyone was astonishing. He always made people feel like they were valued and respected, and gave time to everyone who crossed his path. He reminded us always of what you walk past is what you accept. He never walked past anyone in need and always saw people for their ability, not their disability. Mum and Dad had a marriage and connection which was truly rare. The way they supported each other in their own pursuits but raised a family together is unforgettable. Not once did we see them argue. Well, there was a few "yes, darling" from Dad, but never a raised voice. And not a day went by without them showing how much they loved each other and us. Mum supported Dad in everything he did and always chose to stay in the background. Otherwise, she would crap herself if she had to talk, and Dad never wanted her to feel that way. We want to pay tribute to the strength of our mum over all the years, but more so in the past 11 months where her courage, love and care for Dad transcended anything us kids had witnessed before. Her dedication to Dad allowed him to fulfil so many of his wishes during his illness, but helped him to achieve the long list of accolades he has. They are the best parents any kids could ask for. The devotion and love Dad showed to our partners, and especially his grandchildren, Albert, Isabella, Jaslyn, Lockie, Ethan and Ollie, was unconditional. He constantly expressed how proud he was of all of us and supported us in every endeavour we pursued.
When Dad was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia on the 23rd of December last year, it rocked our world. How could this man, who had done so much for everyone else, be dealt this card? Where is the fairness in that? But in true Dad style, he took on the challenge. For the first time in his life, he had to put himself first and put his life in the hands of many other people. But that was hard. People would ring to see how he was going, and then he'd get diverted to talking about their own problems. And as Dad has always done, he genuinely listened and consoled them, despite the fact he was fighting the battle of his life. Most often the news was not good, but every time he was dealt a blow, he would reset and say onwards and upwards, or it is what it is, and take on the next challenge, to do everything in his power to make each day matter, as he did for everyone else over the past 72 years. Thank you to our extended family and friends for the support, love and care they have provided during the past 11 months, and a special thanks to Dr Bashara, Dr Nath and the Ashford Hospital staff, Professor Peter Barty and the RA staff, the amazing nurses from Hospital at Home, Dr Sally and Amanda from the palliative care team, and the Red Cross and all those who have donated blood products. You allowed us to spend those precious moments with our Dad that some others don't get, so we thank you deeply. We knew our Dad was strong and one of a kind, but the courage, determination and constant thought for others during his biggest battle was truly inspirational. Although he may have lost this battle, he definitely went out on his terms. The world has lost a man whose life was devoted to others. Never did Dad's words contradict his actions, nor his actions contradict his words. Selfless, resilient, compassionate, honest. As we navigate life now as a dad, mum, teacher, fireman and personal trainer, we carry with us the most important lesson Dad taught us. And that was the reward from serving others in a community with compassion, empathy and respect is far greater than the reward of serving oneself. We had the privilege no others have of calling Russell Ebert our dad and our best mate. We love you, Dad.
Beautifully done. Thank you to the Ebert children, to Tammy, Benjamin and Brett. I'd now like to invite forward the chaplain of the Port Adelaide Football Club to lead us in prayer, the Reverend Brandon Chaplin.
I have been privileged to be the chaplain of the Port Adelaide Football Club for the last 25 years. Most of us here today watching the broadcast or are here present, we know of Russell Ebert the footballer, or even Russell Ebert the community person, who gave an outstanding contribution to many in various ways. Russell did not use his football fame to feather his own nest, or to wield greater power, or manipulate people to get what he wanted. He used it to help, support and guide those less fortunate than himself. So it is with football and community service that he was extraordinary at both. This was his public persona. He was content enough and willing enough to be that person. But I think that it is true that Russell Ebert was most content at being Russell Ebert the person, the bloke, the husband, the father, the grandfather. There was a lot more going on in Russell Ebert that met the eye, that grabbed our attention, that made the news and formed the highlight reel. For all the life he lived in the public eye, he was in many ways a private man who avoided the spotlight. About a year ago, Russell was diagnosed with an illness that would prove to be insurmountable. Russell Ebert met the challenge before him with courage and determination, with grit and discipline, with unwavering focus and faith. For there is one thing we must all face, and that is death. I was talking to Ben last week, who just got up and spoke about his dad, and among the many things that we talked about was how Russell faced death. One of the things we talked about was Psalm 23, possibly the most famous passage in the Bible. And it goes like this: "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Russell Ebert did not pen those words, but they ring true. For those who had contact with Russell in his last months will know that he had a peace of mind that transcends understanding, a faith that gave him a deep-seated sense of well-being, an assurance of eternal hope in his heart, and to the very end, he had a countenance of gratitude for the life he had lived and for the people he has loved. He walked through the valley of the shadow of death, and now he lies in green pastures beside still waters, where a table is prepared for him, and he shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. When it comes to these matters of life and death, Christians look to the Easter event. Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies, and whoever lives and believes in me will never die." The Christian conviction that Russell shared is that the people of faith move on into the nearer presence of God, where they shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them, nor any scorching heat. For Christ in the midst of his throne will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to springs of living water, and God himself will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And so I say, particularly to Russell's family and closest friends, hear the words of Jesus. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I am going there to prepare a place for you. And if you go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. And I say to all of us these words today. We never know what is around the corner, but there are some things we can control and decisions we can make. We must forgive those who need forgiving, embrace those who need embracing. We must bury any hatchets. We must put down any weapons. We must keep short reconciliation accounts and listen to those who are hurting. The family has requested that we will say the Lord's Prayer together, and following that we are going to sing the hymn Amazing Grace. What we're going to do is we're going to stand and say this prayer together, then I'm going to add a short prayer, and then Rachel Leocar will come and sing us Amazing Grace, which we would love you to join with us in. So please stand and say the Lord's Prayer with me. It is in your little booklet. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Our Father in heaven, inasmuch as you in your sovereign love have called the soul of our loved one and friend Russell to be with you, we express our thanks for the privilege of knowing him. We thank you for the way he impacted our lives and for your grace through difficult times. We are grateful for your love. You, the great shepherd of the sheep, you who have prepared a place for all who trust you and who alone are worthy of our faith. To you we turn for continued strength, continued comfort, continued perspective and continued purpose. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please refer to the words of Amazing Grace, and Rachel will lead us. Thank you, Rachel.
I first believed.
That was beautiful, Rachel. Thank you so much for leading us, and thank you to everyone for joining in. Please be seated once again. And thank you to the Reverend Brandon Chaplin. Next up, two of Russell's lifelong friends, teammates and champions of the Port Adelaide Football Club. I'd like to welcome up Peter Voigt and Max James.
Well, I had the pleasure of knowing Russell for the past 52 years, both as a mate within the team and a terrific friend. My wife and I and our kids have spent many wonderful times with the Eberts. I played my whole career at the Magpies with Russell. I had a front row seat to see him in action. It was an unbelievable experience to play alongside him. He was a perfect kick, either the torpedo, drop punt or even the drop kick. A sensational high mark, could read the play better than anyone, powerful physique, quick, and what about his overhead handballs? Russell could play and dominate any position on the ground. He was a man of unmatched talent. One of the things I really liked, he always came back to help out us backmen, and we appreciated his extra effort. He was generally always tagged, but I never saw anyone beat him or really reduce his dominance. As our captain, he led by example, and what an example it was. I reckon one of the greatest games Russell played was against Barry Robram. Russell played centre-half back, standing Barry at Prospect in 1972. He kept Barry scoreless. Who was the greatest player, people have asked? They are both champions and great mates, but I naturally give my vote to Russell. As a young man, before he married Di, he was a member of the so-called Wild Bunch, and I can tell you that rumour about breaking into the club is wrong. They broke out of the club. That old saying, you can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy, really applied to Russell. He loved going back to the Riverland, and we had many great times out spotlighting and yabbing with his mates Leidy, Kroll and Harney. I've always thought Russell was bulletproof. One night out spotlighting on Ron Mickey's property at Waikerie, Russell jumped off the back of the spotlighting vehicle while it was moving quite fast and chased off after a rabbit. The rabbit ran under a fence, but Russell just kept going, demolishing the fence and still catching the rabbit. He was very focused and fortunately no injuries. He was tough. Now, Darryl Cale is a great friend of Russell's and a very good practical joker. Russell had a very good, dry sense of humour and was always quick with a comment just at the right time. Near the end of the 1974 season, the annual team photograph was taken on the Oval here. George Hutton was the photographer, and he meticulously arranged the position of the players and officials. Russell and I, as captain and vice-captain, were seated at the front, with John Swain, the chairman, and Ken Duthie, the president, sitting either side of us. Darryl Cale was standing directly behind John Swain. Unbeknown to John Swain, Darryl had dropped his old fella out on John's shoulder. Russell saw what was going on and was just chuckling to himself. He whispered to me to look at DC. Russell said this could be the best team photo ever. Just as George Hutton was about to take the photograph, he stopped and asked if he could speak to Big Bob McLean. Big Bob then told Darryl to put that thing away, at which Russell commented, "It hasn't shrunk a bit." Everyone cracked up laughing. Everyone knows Russell would always help anyone. He had a generosity of spirit. My children adored him for always showing interest in what they were doing. That was the man. Early last year, Russell organised for my 6-year-old grandson to meet his idol, Robbie Gray. Russell took him for a tour of the club rooms before Robbie came off the training track. Russell showed him Robbie's locker and his footy boots locker, and then Robbie came and signed his Guernsey and poster and had a photograph taken with him. He is now a Power supporter for life. When Russell passed away, my grandson was staying with us at our farm. I told him Russell had passed away. A short time later, a jet flew high over with a vapour trail, and seeing that, my grandson said, "Pop, there goes Russell to heaven." I said, "There he goes to captain God's team." He was a champion in every sense of the word. We will miss you, Russell. Love you.
I've also had the privilege of knowing Russell Ebert for over 50 years and feel honoured that he considered me his friend. Plenty has been written and said about Russ' vast abilities and achievements. All I want to say is that he's the best player I've ever played with. He excelled in everything he did, sport or leisure. Because of his dogged determination and prowess, he would be the first one I would pick in any contest, except golf. That was not his forte. He had an old set of clubs, but mainly improvised with his 3-iron and putter. I recall playing with Russell in a past players' event at Wollonga many years ago, and as we're about to tee off, I looked in his bag and saw an axe. I quizzed him about it, and he said it was okay because it was under the 14-club limit. Considering he spent most of the day in the trees and bushes, I thought it was a very good choice. Russ was fiercely competitive, and I'd always try and test myself against him at every opportunity, and he would pretty well beat me every time. Triathlons were often included in our pre-season training, and he'd always beat me because he was such a powerful swimmer. I, on the other hand, was the opposite, and he would often goad me and tease me, and saying that in a swimming race they could time me with a calendar. But one year at Victor Harbour, they changed the format to a run, then the swim, then the bike ride. As the swim leg was short and had a lot of places where you could walk on the bottom, I thought that finally I was a good chance to beat him, especially when before the race I'd moved and hidden his bike. The plan was coming along beautifully, for as I was riding away on the last leg, Russ was yelling and cursing, frantically searching for his bike. I was well past the halfway point and heading back towards Victor when I saw him riding towards me. He didn't look happy. As we passed one another, he glared at me and shouted, "It was you, wasn't it?" But after a few beers that evening, he forgave me and we had a laugh about it. Another time I caused him grief was when he was in a Perth hospital after receiving an eye injury in our first game against Victoria at an interstate carnival. He was going to be kept in there for up to a week. So on our rest day, I dropped in a 6-pack of beers for him. Due to the extent of his injury, both of his eyes were bandaged and had to stay that way for several days. While talking with him, I picked up his medical chart from the end of the bed. There was a pen handy, so I made an entry in the special instructions and quietly put it back. Over the next couple of days, Russ heard the nurses laughing and giggling whenever they came in to do their checks, but he had no idea why. Then the matron did her rounds. She looked at the chart and went ballistic at Russ, saying this was serious and his visitors shouldn't be making comments on hospital documentation. He pointed out his inability to see and asked what was written. She read, Russell is to be given a sexual relief massage every 8 hours. He agreed he was indeed serious because no one had followed the instructions. Russell is known for his great work with major charities and organisations, but he also did so much for so many other people, and I'd just like to give a few examples. Jim the Snip, a well-known identity around Port Adelaide and Semaphore, who generously gave free haircuts to the players over many, many years. Well, Jim fell on hard times and was in a downward spiral. But with advice, encouragement and ongoing support, both emotionally and financially from Russell, he was able to turn his life around. Jim has often said that he would step in front of a bullet for Russell. Then there was Charlie, an elderly gentleman who lived next door to the bank at Royal Park where Russell worked. Every week, Russell would drop in to see him, check on his medication, that he had fresh food. He'd mow his lawns and do other odd jobs that needed doing. He kept this up for years and years until Charlie went into an aged care facility. Once he hired a tray truck and picked me up at 5:30 a.m. on a hot Saturday in January. He explained the neighbour of his Mount Barker property was on assignment in the Antarctic, and his wife didn't know how she was going to get their 2 paddocks of hay picked up and stacked in the hay shed. Once again, Russell to the rescue. Anyone who needed any physical help with landscaping, gardening or any other major project, Russell was the first one there. Cutting down or trimming trees was his speciality. Just ask Bill Sanders. He was like Zorro with a chainsaw. But if you only needed a few branches removed, you had to supervise. Otherwise, you could start off with a tree and finish with a toothpick. In the mid-70s, I was working in a bank and I flicked over my daily desk diary and I read an adage that I instantly thought, this relates to Russell Ebert. And it's always stayed with me over the years, and I still think these words of wisdom sum up Russell. It read, "True valour is to do without witness what you would like the whole world see you do." Russell Ebert was a man of true valour, and we'll miss him.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Peter Voigt and Max James. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could please draw your attention to the big screens, and just for the next couple of moments, we've condensed it to a couple of moments, but these are the highlights of Russell Ebert.
Russell Ebert. Great catch, Russell Ebert. Magnificently done, Mark Russell. Taken there by Ebert.
Do it to the best of your ability and don't do anything half-hearted.
Look at Ebert. Oh, Ebert's still on the run, on the left foot. This looks mighty good for Russell Ebert. Back they go. Fred Sanders there, pulled off the ball by Ebert. Craig and Williams do battle. Ebert on the ground. Oh, brilliant football, Russell Ebert. Threads out the long handball on Ebert. Ebert's clear, has a bounce. What a luxury, 2 bounces. He's running straight into the open goal. Boundary throw it. Oh, does it very well too. Look at the strength of Ebert. Port Adelaide, Ebert.
Can you win it again?
Oh, if I get enough votes, I'll win it. Yeah.
Ebert.
Every player has good days, and he may be an underrated player, but he'll do a job, and so he's got to be a hard opponent.
The 4th McGarry medal. Would this be the highlight of your career? Obviously it would be.
Yeah, individually it'd have to be, of course. It would be stupid to say anything else. The most pleasure I got out of football was the 1977 Premiership. It's a team game, and it's a Premiership that is the ultimate.
It's taken us a bloody long time, but by Jesus, worth it.
The first player ever to win 4 McGarry medals. Russell, you bloody beauty.
Thanks very much, Big Bob, and also Russell Ebert. I think the emotion has come too far.
Over Pike's Street, right back to Ebert. I bet he'd love to kick a goal. Here's his chance, spears it up there. Down to the half-forward line, in front and marked there by Russell Ebert. But it's Russell Ebert with the ball now. Left foot kick. Ebert over the top again. Oh, this fella's rejuvenated. Loose ball out there at centre wing. Across goes the Eulogy, and away goes Ebert. Bounces it off the big. Recovers very well. Drop kicks it, bumping the boot. Ebert keeps the ball running for Port Adelaide. Ebert with it. He's going for home with a long kick in towards the ball. Oh, what a goal! Hands there for North Melbourne. He's run another good game for them too. He's got it back to Ebert. Ebert a turn over towards Jameson towards the centre wing. His kick is directed. Ebert from behind, snatches it away from Kevin Morris.
It's just a matter of hard work, and the more you put in, the more you'll get out of the game. Work as hard as you can, do whatever the coach instructs you, whether you think it's right or wrong. In the coach's mind, it's right for you and the team.
I think the thrill of knowing that your club and your team is going to give you the best effort they possibly can on the day. And history shows that we win more than we lose.
Never had a chance, but Ebert butters up again. Beautiful control of the ball as he comes through the half-back line.
Just a sincere thank you for all the support you've given us during your career, sort of just trying to get a game and just trying to organise a family and maybe run a business. You very rarely get the opportunity to tell people whether they're 1, 2, 3, 4 years of age or whether they're the grandma that's still digging black and white and have added a bit of teal to their scarves and their rugs. You very rarely get an opportunity to just say how absolutely privileged it's been to be able to run out onto the ground, give you some enjoyment. Thank you, much appreciated and blessed.
To our final two speakers this afternoon, the CEO of the Port Adelaide Football Club, Matthew Richardson, and club champion, Premiership captain, Tim Ginniver.
Any Port Adelaide supporter that grew up in the 70s absolutely idolised this bloke. You could walk into any schoolyard and hear the chants, Ebert takes another Specky or a Seiko, as it was known in those days. And everybody be arguing about who's going to wear number 7 in the school team. I was one of those kids. Now got the responsibility of representing all of you and also the former teammates that were coached and mentored by Russell. What an honour to actually be involved with your hero. I mean, we were in awe. This bloke won more Magarey medals than I got votes in the medal. True story. Every player, after his first year of coach, we were brought in by Bob McLean and we were told that the club is on the brink of bankruptcy. Imagine that. We were told as players that everybody must take a 50% pay cut or we won't survive. And as Paul Belton correctly pointed out to me, don't worry about it, Timmy, 50% of nothing is nothing. I wasn't that great at maths. But typical Russell, and his optimism. He gathered the troops, he debuted the kids, gave us our first 30 or 40 games, and we narrowly missed out on winning a flag the following year. I looked back and had a look at the premiership teams that I played in, and Russell debuted no fewer than 17 guys that went on to play in premierships. Absolutely staggering. All that was fantastic, but he is also unfortunately responsible for appointing David Armfield as fitness coach and port runner. That bloke has cost us so much money. He is a dead set serial pest. So bad decision, Russ. But we hung on every word he said. We absolutely adored him. He would prepare a written screed for each and every one of us before a game. And it was your game, the opposition game, your player that you might be playing against. It was all meticulous in the planning. And what I found out about Russell was it wasn't just football that he planned so well for. It was 1986, it was his testimonial night, and over 1,000 people turned up. It was a terrific evening. But during one of the breaks, Russell came up to the players' table and he said, "Now listen, I'm running a footy clinic in the Riverland tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, so I need 4 people to come with me." Could not put my hand up quick enough to go. Going to be with my hero. How good's this? Road trip. A young Wayne Marnie, Ben Harris, yes, and that serial pest, David Armfield, joined us. And we went on this journey. I thought this is going to be awesome. I'm going to learn so much. Well, we got up to the Riverland. We went to Brother Bill's house. He set us up on the houseboat to sleep. You beauty, right up to the club. Let's have a bit of meal. And then we started drinking. And this is when I found out that Russell wasn't just an A-grade footballer. He was an A-grade drinker. His first sip, he put it down half the stubby gone. I was like, whoa, I just had a little inch out of it. The second one, bang. Third one, it's gone. He tapped my stubby and said, "Don't be long, son." I was in trouble. We then continued on to see Buff Tyrrell, the Palmer and Woodville champion. We went there for a few hours. We came back to Loxton, a few more beers. We then went on to the houseboat. I'm in big trouble. The morning comes, I am in agony. Russell comes and wakes us all up and says, "Come on, Bill's already cooked breakfast, got bacon and eggs ready for you." I'll put it this way, I'd overcated. I was in trouble. We get up there and I thought, how am I going to do this clinic? I look out on the Oval and I thought, it's got to be, where are all the kids? I was expecting hundreds. There's 2 kids having a kick and a catch. I looked at Russell and said, "Russell, what about the clinics, the footy clinics?" He looked at me and said, "What footy clinics?" I said, "These footy clinics." He says, "Oh, no. There was no footy clinics. I just wanted to catch up with Bill." He hoodwinked me. Jeez, the lessons you learn. But those times were great. But the times I really loved was when I worked with him here. I had a little mini bar underneath my desk and he'd come in about 4 o'clock on a Friday and he'd go, "What have you got in there?" And I'd say, "Would you like a beer, Mr. Ebert?" He said, "That's very kind of you, Mr. Geneva." I'd get him a can, open it up, and off we go, and we'd exchange stories. But the thing he loved exchanging the most was photos of our grandchildren. Very special, very proud that he was of all of them. Very sad day, and during his battle we had conversations. I said to him, "Look, mate, you're going to get inundated. What I'll do is I'll just send you the odd text, the odd joke, or the odd photo just to bring a smile on your dial." And just a month ago, I was walking past Adelaide Oval and went past the statue, and I thought, I can't miss this opportunity. So I gave the phone to the wife, Ange, and I said, "Ange, take a photo of me." I've got up the back of the statue and I've gone like this to take a hanger. Took the photo, sent it off to him and said, "What about this, Russ? Me taking a hanger over you?" And as quick as a flash he came back, he said, "Yeah, Timmy, but look who's got the ball." What a legend. Russell has left us physically, but we know spiritually he lives on here forever. And when Di asked me to speak, I could have been prouder. And it came to me, number 7's gone to heaven. But our favourite son will always be number 1. Love you, mate.
To the Ebert family, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honour to speak on behalf of the Port Adelaide Football Club and the broader Port Adelaide family today. I do so on behalf of all the current, former players and officials. To those unable to be here today due to travel restrictions, including our chairman David Koch and former premiership captain and great teammate of Russell Johnson up in Sydney. Our members and supporters from all around the world, his great mates in Hong Kong where he did several tours. Russ was a hero to so many. He transcended generations. To the support staff and the volunteers who had a very special relationship with this group. And the hundreds of staff at Port Adelaide, which has been his home for 53 years, in particular the last 22, where he had two important roles. First and foremost, he was our community programs. And secondly, he was Russell Ebert and he was Port Adelaide. He loved the first, he wasn't so keen on the second because he was selfless and it was never about him. Russell was a lot of fun to work with. He had the aura and the presence that you all knew well, and he had his signature lines. How are you, Russ? Been better, Richo, but I can't remember when, or I shouldn't be this good, Richo. You'd ask Russ for another favour, sign something, a photo, go and see someone, come to an event, and let me say, he never ever said no, but he did make us work pretty hard for it sometimes, and he'd keep us honest. Yeah, no worries, Richo. Just add it to the list. In fact, do you want me to sweep the grandstand, mow the oval while I'm at it? He loved interacting with people. Football might have been his first gift, but this was definitely his second. He'd be magnificently dressed always. Iron black dress shorts, club polo tucked in, white socks halfway up his chiselled calves and shiny white tennis shoes. Powerful, imposing, indestructible. But above all of that, he was a great friend to all of us. We loved his stories. We'd pump him for information at every opportunity, and we all hung off every word. How good, private audience with Russell Ebert. There was nothing better. His love for the support staff and the volunteers was special, such as his great mate, Alfie Trabilko, our legendary boot stutter, who started at Port Adelaide the same time Russell walked in the doors from Loxton in 1968. Alfie used to build a special heel in Russ's boots to look after the great man's hamstrings. In 2015, when Russell's statue was unveiled at Adelaide Oval, Russell made sure that those boots had Alfie's special personalised heel, and he made sure Alfie knew. These are for you, mate. Without you, I'm not here in bronze. Russell Ebert had two Hall of Fame careers, as a footballer and as a person about giving back to the community. In the late 80s, he teamed up with Barry Robber and the Crippled Children's Association. Russell and Barry were founding members of the Sports Challenge Foundation, with Russell the inaugural chairman, of course. For years, they travelled the state, running sportsmen's nights and raising money. More recently, the mighty River Run was another of Russell's great passions, combining his love for the Riverland with supporting kids in need. Over that time, they raised well over $5 million for Novita. Together also with his great friend Gordon Pickard, he did amazing things helping those who needed it, always under the radar with no fanfare. If Gordon asked, Russell was there, and vice versa. In 1999, Brian Cunningham and Rob Snowden had a vision for the role the club could play in the wider community, and there was only one man for the job. The Community Youth Program, to be headed by Russell Ebert. Port Adelaide and Russell were ahead of their time yet again when you considered the importance that community programs now play across all AFL clubs. Ironically, for the last 15 years, the kids who Russell was teaching had no idea who Russell was. But the galleries of teachers and parents who'd come out and watched their childhood hero certainly did. It just proved it was never about Russell, it was always about other people. The legacy he has built here at Port Adelaide with Power Community Limited is as significant as his monumental playing record. 392 games, 6 best and fairest, 4 Magarey medals, 3 premierships. In 1992, the club established the Outback Odyssey as a fundraising event. And of course it needed a headline and an ambassador. Who else but Russell Ebert? For the next 28 years, the Odyssey has raised significant money for the club's community programs and also numerous charity partners. In 2012, the Royal Flying Doctor Service became the major beneficiary of the Odyssey, with Russell still the headline attraction. He loved it. He'd go on the survey trips to map the following year's course, and then he'd sit at remote outback station boundary fence junctions in the middle of nowhere for days on a deck chair, greeting participants as they passed through the checkpoint. Can you imagine that? Being greeted by the great Russell Ebert, assuring that you and your mates in a beat-up old FJ Holden are on the right track. How good. The way he interacted with people was special, and he had time and genuine care. And then there was his role calling AFL footy with 5AA and over 20 years of the Saturday morning sports show. And of course, he was in the commentary box at the MCG that day in September 2004 when Port Adelaide won its first premiership in the AFL. KG and Cornsey with Russell Ebert on Saturday mornings. What a lineup. He was supposed to bring Port Adelaide balance to the show. No one could do it better. You don't win an argument with Russ. Chocky donuts from Argos, home ice cream in the fridge. Neither lasted long with Russ around. Russ would bounce in on a Saturday morning, happy, smiling, cheeky grin on his face, according to both Graham and Ken. Now I'm putting that to you, Di, and the fact he was so happy at home, because I couldn't possibly imagine the thought of another Saturday morning on air with KG and Cornsey would have made him smile like that. Above all, Russell Ebert loved his family. He'd been with pride at every opportunity to talk about them. He loved his football club. It's the very reason we're here at Alberton Oval today. He loved the supporters. They have high expectations and drive accountability. He thrived because of it, and he demanded the best of all of us who have the privilege to work for the club. He loved giving back, and he loved interacting with people. He was so grateful. Across this year, he would say, "What a life I've lived. How lucky am I?" Today, we farewell Russell Ebert. It doesn't seem real. He was always indestructible. His legacy lives on, his monumental playing record, and the life-changing community programs for which he will always be the inspiration here at Port Adelaide. And the amazing stories we'll all continue to share. I remember the day I met Russell Ebert. Rest in peace, great man. What an incredible life.
Very well said. Thank you, Club CEO Matthew Richardson and Premiership Captain Tim Ginniver. And thank you to all of our speakers today who have made this such an outstanding celebration of Russell's life. Can I now please ask Di and the immediate family and the pallbearers to please come forward and say their final farewells to Russell. Russell will be farewelled by a guard of honour of past and present Port Adelaide football players. If I could ask the rest of you to please remain seated for the meantime. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're able to, could I please ask you to stand?
Cheer the black and the white, honour the magpies day and by night. Lift that loyal banner high, shake out the thunder from the sky. Whether the odds be great or be small, we'll come out and win overall. While our players keep on fighting, onward to victory. Cheer the black and the white, honour the magpies day and by night. Lift that loyal banner high, shake out the thunder from the sky. Whether the odds be great or be small, we'll come out and win overall. While our players keep on fighting, onward to victory. Cheer the black and the white, honour the magpies day and by night. Lift that royal banner high, shake out the thunder.
Indeed, what a fitting farewell and moving celebration of Russell Ebert's life, as we heard more than once, a champion in every single sense of the word, and beautifully said by his son Brett. The world has lost a man who was devoted to others, humble and kind till the very end. Russell Ebert will be sorely